Wait, you mean like right now? In the middle of the lab? Sunset asked as she was caught off guard by Damien's proposition. Yep, Damien exclaimed. I assure you, Sunset, this tends to almost be tradition at this point when Dreamborn trainers get their starter Pokemon. A lot of battles have actually happened in this very room. I don't want you all battling in here. Everything was reinforced a long time ago so that it would take more than just a few straight moves to break things, Professor Sylvan said. If that's the case, I'm definitely up for a battle as I kinda want to see what a Delta Pokemon is capable of. What about you, Sunset? Wyatt asked. Sunset thought for a bit. She was interested to see how Pokemon battles played out, but she had no experience of either being in or much less witnessing one, so she didn't know how Pokemon battles work. You two can go ahead. I don't really know how Pokemon battles work, so maybe I can learn a thing or two by watching the both of you. That's perfectly fine, Sunset. You can be on the sidelines with me and I can point things out and explain them to you so you can better understand them, Professor Silva said as she walked over to the computers at the other side of the room and stood there. We'll do our best so you can learn from us, Damien said encouragingly as he moved to the left side of the room. Thanks, Sunset said as she went over and stood by Professor Sylvan, ready to witness the battle that's about to unfold. Oh man, you have no idea how long I waited to say this. Hero, let's go! Hero jumped off of Damien's shoulders, did a front flip in midair, and perfectly stuck the landing as he now stood in front of Damien. Bent his knees a bit and leaned forward as his tail swished back and forth, showing that he was ready to fight. Okay then, it's our turn. You ready, Shade? Wyatt asked the Delta on his shoulder as he went over to the right side of the room. In return, Shade gave a lazy nod while smiling. Alright, then let's do this. Wyatt picked up Shade from his shoulders and set him on his feet onto the ground where Shade then took a few small steps forward. When he was about an equal distance from Wyatt as Hero was to Damien, Shade watched as Hero began to flex in an attempt to show that he was confident in winning before giving a small taunt by gesturing to Shade to bring it on. However, no one was expecting what would happen next. As if some sort of switch had been flipped upon seeing his opponent, Shade's calm and lazy demeanor quickly disappeared as his expression changed. His eyes narrowed forward as though glaring at Hero, and his smile was replaced with a menacing growl as he began to slightly snarl. Shade bent his knees and tilted forward as though he was ready to charge straight at his opponent. He kept opening and closing his hands as he flashed his claws at Hero. Needless to say, Hero's bravado disappeared and he was now thoroughly intimidated. It seemed like everyone else was as well. Shade swapped from appearing calm and carefree to looking like he wants to tear Hero apart. Is that lazy attitude just a show to hide how he really is? Sunset thought to herself. Whoa, Shade, calm down. You don't have to be this aggressive, Wyatt said to Shade, though Shade didn't appear to register what Wyatt said as nothing seemed to change. I think it's just Shade's way of intimidating his opponent, Sylvan said. Many Pokemon have their own ways of trying to intimidate their opponent in battle, from bird Pokemon flaring out their feathers to make themselves look bigger, or even Pokemon with sharp body parts showing them off to show how dangerous they are. It's possible that in this case, Shade is doing the latter. Regardless, don't get intimidated, Hero. We've got this, Damien said encouragingly to his starter. Hero heard this and seemed to get back his bravado as he got back into his battle stance as Damien pulled out his Pokédex so he could see what moves Hero had. Wyatt looked at his starter with a mix of worry and curiosity. He didn't know why Shade's attitude had changed completely, but he didn't feel like it was only Shade's way to intimidate his opponent. The growling sounded a little too feral for intimidation. It was as if Shade was thinking of this battle as a life or death situation. Wyatt felt that if he and Shade didn't work together properly, something bad would happen. Shade, are you ready? Wyatt asked, and this time, Shade responded by looking back at Wyatt and gave him a small nod. Seeing this and giving a small smile, Wyatt pulled out his Pokédex so he could see Shade's moves. Okay, then let's do this. Okay, let's start this off strong. Use Tackle, Damien said. Hero braced himself before he launched himself forward towards Shade in order to ram him, only to face completely through him. What? Why did it? Oh, right. Shade's not a fire type. He's a ghost type. Whoops. Why did Hero pass through Shade? Why was he able to touch and hold him just fine earlier? Sunset asked. Here's where a Pokemon's typing comes into play. Tackle is a relatively simple normal type move where the user tries to ram into their target. However, Shade's part ghost type, and ghost type Pokemon are immune to both normal and fighting type moves. And since Tackle is a normal type move, Shade was immune to it, resulting in Hero phasing right through him, Professor Sylvan explained. So Pokemon can not only be resistant and weak against certain type of moves, they can also be immune to them? That's interesting, Sunset said. Well, Petunia here is part fairy type, meaning that she's immune to dragon type moves. Actually, all three of the deltas you all chose are immune to one or more types, as Hero is part dark type, meaning he's immune to psychic type moves, Professor Sylvan said. Really? You're immune to dragons? Sunset said amusingly while looking down at Petunia. She knew how tough and dangerous dragons were back in Equestria, with the exception of one she knew, of course, so she found it kind of funny that something as small and cute as Petunia could win against a dragon. Alright, our turn. Shade, use Growl, Wyatt said. Shade closed his mouth before he let out a loud growl that generated 3 small white shockwaves of sound that flew towards Hero. Hero was struck by them, and a blue aura appeared around him as blue particles fell around him and then disappeared as Hero felt physically weaker. Growl? What kind of move is Growl? Sunset asked. Growl is a normal type move that falls under the category of a status move. Speaking of, there are 3 kinds of moves: physical, special, and status. Physical moves are where the user uses a body part to attack the opponent, often making contact. Special moves involve the user firing a beam or a ball of energy at the opponent. Status moves don't deal damage most of the time, but they are able to strengthen or weaken a Pokemon in a variety of ways. Growl decreases Hero's attack, meaning its physical moves won't be as strong as before, Professor Sylvan explained. That's not good. Hero, even the playing field by using Tail Whip, Damien called out. Hero got close to Shade before using his tail to bat Shade a couple of times before it jumped away. It hit, and while it didn't do any damage, a blue aura appeared around Shade with blue particles falling around him, and then disappeared as Shade felt weaker. Now what did Tail Whip do? Sunset asked. Tail Whip is a normal type move that lowers the target's defense, meaning that Shade will take more damage from physical moves, also meaning that, in a sense, the effects of Growl have been evened out, Professor Sylvan said. But didn't you say that ghost types are immune to normal type moves? Yes, however, moves such as Growl and Tail Whip, despite being normal type, can still be used on ghost types. A lot of status moves are like this, as a lot of the time their type doesn't matter and they can still be used on the Pokemon that would be immune to the move's type. Shade, you scratch, Wyatt said, prompting Shade's claws to glow white before he delivered a powerful scratch that raked across Hero's front. Hero, shake it off. If you can't use normal type moves, then we'll just do something that Shade's weak against. Use Pursuit, Damien said. Hero's body was covered in a faint black aura before he rushed at Shade and ready to punch. Shade, try and dodge it, Wyatt called out. Only it was too late as the punch connected with Shade's torso and he was sent flying back a couple of feet before he landed back on the ground and got up. Seeing that the hit also did a lot of damage as Shade struggled for a second to get back up. That looked like it did a lot. What kind of move even was that? Sunset asked. Pursuit is a dark type move that allows the user to hit a Pokemon even as it's being swapped out. If that does happen, then the damage dealt by Pursuit is doubled, and since ghost type Pokemon are weak to dark type moves, that hit ended up dealing a lot of damage to Shade, Professor Sylvan said. You can swap out a Pokemon in the middle of a fight? Yes. Suppose I should also explain that trainers are allowed to carry 6 Pokemon at a time. If a trainer has 6 caught Pokemon with them and catches a 7th, then the 7th one is converted into data and then is sent to their Pokemon storage system, also simply called the PC, where it's stored inside and is placed in a digital environment where other Pokemon a trainer has caught can also be stored. Yep, it's official. The world's technology is more advanced than the human version of Equestria. If the Twilights found out about this world, they would freak out and study everything they could about this world's technology. Sunset thought to herself as she was dumbfounded that Pokemon could be converted into data and stored inside computers. Shade, are you okay? Wyatt asked, which Shade responded with a simple growl. Okay, then use Twister. To Sunset's surprise, blue and purple wind began to gather around Shade as it closed its eyes and began to concentrate. To Sunset's surprise, blue and purple wind began to gather around Shade as it closed its eyes and began to concentrate. The wind then traveled down to Shade's tail where it began swirling around it. Shade's eyes shot open as it jumped into the air and swung its tail, the action causing the wind to peel off his tail and create a small purple and blue tornado that rushed towards Hero and struck him, sending him flying into the air and crashing back down to the ground. Did Shade just create a tornado? Sunset exclaimed. Yep. Twister involves the user using what we call dragon energy to manipulate and empower the air around it, allowing the Pokemon to send forth a tornado of dragon energy towards their opponent, Professor Sylvan explained. Hero, are you good? Damien asked. Slowly, Hero began to stand up as it appeared to be on its legs. Black aura briefly appeared around it as Hero gave off a small roar. Yeah, that's the spirit. What's going on with Hero? Sunset asked. If I were to guess, that would be Hero's ability activating, Professor Sylvan said. Ability? What do you mean by ability? Having a type and learning moves of different types isn't the only thing a Pokemon has. Pokemon have what are known as abilities, which are all different and trigger under certain circumstances. For instance, abilities such as Keen Eye and Big Pecs prevent a certain stat from being lowered, while abilities such as Aftermath deal damage to the opponent that knocked out the Pokemon while using a contact move. Would you mind using your Pokedex to scan Hero for me real quick? Sunset obliged and scanned Hero, showing that his ability was called Shadow Call. Just what I thought. From appearance alone and the way it triggered, I can assume Shadow Call is a variation of the ability Torrent. Torrent increases the strength of all water-type moves used by the user as long as the Pokemon's HP is low. I assume Shadow Call is a dark-type variation of Torrent, meaning that Pursuit will deal even more damage to Shade. Now Hero, use Pursuit, Damien called out, prompting a somewhat fiercer black aura to appear around Hero as he rushed towards Shade. Not this time. Shade, use Scratch to try and parry it, Wyatt called out. Shade's claws began to glow white as Hero got closer and prepared to punch him. But right as he was about to, Shade managed to redirect the punch using Scratch and kept parrying as Shade continued to try and punch Shade. However, in the end, Shade was unable to parry a punch and ended up being struck in the chest as he was sent flying back towards Wyatt. "Shade, come on, get up!" Wyatt shouted to Shade as he lay face down on the ground. After a couple of moments, Shade slowly began to get back up as it looked like it was about to fall over. Shade then let out a feral yell as a purple aura appeared around it as its glare seemed to become even more piercing. "Yes, you can do this!" "Now what's Shade's ability?" Sunset asked as she scanned Shade with her Pokedex, revealing its ability to be Spirit Call. I suppose it's similar to that of the ability Blaze. It works exactly the same as Torrent, except it powers up Fire-type moves. From the name alone, I can guess Spirit Call boosts the strength of Ghost-type moves, but it doesn't appear that Shade knows any, so nothing has really changed, Professor Sylvan said. "Alright, Shade, let's give it all we've got. Use Twister," Wyatt called out, prompting Shade to have more purple and blue winds surround him before he launched it forward again as a small tornado. "Break through it using Pursuit," Damien called out, prompting Hero to use Pursuit, and due to the effects of Shadow Call, managed to punch straight through it and keep going. However, it seemed that it didn't negate the move entirely as some of the wind still hit him. "Shade, finish it off with Twister, and make it the biggest one you can make," Wyatt called out. Shade began to concentrate as even more wind began to gather around him and his tail before he swung it and created a tornado that was slightly bigger than the previous ones. It rocketed towards Hero, and before Damien could call out a move, Hero was caught up in the small tornado and was thrown around in it while being buffed by its wind before he was launched out of it and crashed into the ceiling before falling back down. The aura around Hero began to fade away and he passed out as he was defeated, signaling the end of the battle. After a couple of seconds and making sure that Hero was actually down for the count, Shade's demeanor changed as his aggressive attitude went back to being happy and carefree as he let out a yawn and sat down as a happy smile appeared on his face. "Hero has fainted, meaning that Shade and Wyatt have won the battle," Professor Sylvan said. "Wow, you're a great trainer. Totally beat me, Wyatt," Damien explained as he went over to Hero and picked him up. "You were amazing as well, Hero." "You were pretty amazing as well, Damien. Using Pursuit against Twister was an amazing call, even if Hero still got slightly hurt from it," Wyatt stated. "So Sunset, I suppose you now have a better grasp on how Pokemon battles work?" Professor Sylvan asked. "I suppose so. There's a lot to pay attention to and keep track of, but I feel like I now understand the gist of it. Enough to want to try a battle yourself?" "Definitely not yet, but maybe soon." "Alright, now that Wyatt and I have had our battle, here's the deal," Damien began to say. "I'm going to go ahead and head north into Shade Forest. At the northern end of the forest is a really large cave known as Telnor Cave, and somewhere in the middle of that cave is the rare stone we need to look for. I'll meet you guys there. I want to get a head start on looking for the stone, so I'll see you guys there." Damien got out Hero's Pokeball and pointed the button towards him. Then, a small beam of red energy shot out of the button and hit Hero, where he was then transformed into red energy before he was sucked into the Pokeball. With Hero being stored back inside his Pokeball, Damien rushed out of the lab without another word. I suppose Damien headed to the Pokemon Center to heal his Pokemon before he goes into Shade Forest. If you're heading into there right away as well, I can heal Shade for you, Wyatt, Professor Sylvan said. "Thank you, Professor Sylvan." Wyatt says Professor Sylvan went over to one of the bookshelves where multiple potions could be found. Opening it, Professor Sylvan grabbed a potion and walked over to Shade and crouched down so she could be closer to Shade. "What's in that spray bottle? Some sort of medicinal liquid?" Sunset asked. "Remember how I said multiple ways have been made to heal Pokemon almost instantly after a battle? This is one of them. Potions are a type of medicinal spray that helps heal any injuries a Pokemon takes," Wyatt explained as Professor Sylvan began to spray Shade's chest and stomach where he was hit by Pursuit. Shade squirmed a bit due to how cold the spray was, but once Professor Sylvan finished spraying, Shade stood up as it now looked like he hadn't taken any damage at all. "He looks good as new," Sunset exclaimed. "Yep, there are types of potions that are even more potent than a normal one," Wyatt said as Shade walked back towards him and gestured for him to be picked back up, which Wyatt obliged to and put Shade back on his shoulder. "Now then, I assume you two are going after Damien as well. Also, why does he want a rare stone?" Professor Sylvan asked. "Damien doesn't have his present for the Augur, so we're trying to help him get one before the Augur gets here," Wyatt said. "Oh, right. I forgot that was today," Professor Sylvan said, though she sounded very annoyed. "Is something wrong, Professor?" Sunset asked. "The thing is... Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I don't like the second Augur at all." "You don't? Did he do something to you?" "Nothing personally. I get that he's doing various things to help protect the Tauren region from the cults. But tell me, how does ordering almost every town and city in Tauren to create a statue of himself help the region? Also, this whole thing where he's visiting Telnor Town and he specifically asked if they could prepare him gifts sounds like something to boost his own ego. First Augur never did any of this. For argument's sake, he would have been the one getting gifts for everyone in town." "I guess I can agree with you," Sunset said. "Personally, neither her or Wyatt knew the second Augur, and I've been only hearing about him from other people. From Damien, he sounded like a hero and someone everyone in Tauren loved, though from both Damien's father and now Professor Sylvan, it sounded like some of the things he did weren't really liked by a lot of people, and that they missed the previous Augur a lot. However, they both mentally decided to see what he was like before they decided on how they thought of him." Anyways, sorry about my ranting. Let's register each other's deck snaps so that I'll be able to contact you both and vice versa. I need to see your trainer cards as your IDs are what are used to register a deck snap, Professor Sylvan said as she brought out a completely white deck snap from a pocket on her lab coat. Both Sunset and Wyatt gave her their trainer cards, and after a few seconds, she handed them back as they checked their deck snaps and found that Professor Sylvan's contact info had been registered. I suppose we should also register each other's just in case, Wyatt said. Sounds like a good idea, Sunset replied. The two of them then registered each other's deck snaps as they were now able to contact each other easily if they were ever separated. Now then, you two probably shouldn't keep Damien waiting. In the meantime, I'll try and get into contact with my colleagues in Alola and see if there's anything they can know. If I do find out anything, I'll be sure that you two will be the first ones to know, Professor Sylvan said. Now go out and enjoy your adventure. Thank you, Professor Sylvan, Wyatt said. Same here, and thank you for helping me. It means a lot to me, Sunset said. The two of them then headed back outside the lab and took in a breath of fresh air with their new partners as their journey was now beginning. Both Sunset and Wyatt decided to leave their Pokemon outside of their Pokeball so that they could take in the sights of Tonor Town as they walked towards the entrance to Shade Forest, though this did cause some of the townsfolk of Tonor Town to stop and look at the Delta starters. While Shay didn't seem to notice or care as he looked around, Petunia noticed some of the people looking at them and tried to shy away while still being held by Sunset as she was getting nervous. Eventually, the two of them made it to the entrance to Shade Forest, though Wyatt was starting to look nervous and Sunset almost immediately noticed his worried expression. Hey Wyatt, is something wrong? Sunset asked. Kinda. Remember how I said I got both of us away from the cult of Darkrai? Yeah? Well, the thing is, their base is in Shade Forest. Wait, so you mean... Yeah. I'm nervous that we may run into them while going to Tonor Cave. It's been a couple of hours since we got out, so they may have realized we escaped and might be looking for us. Well, let me ask you this. Do you know where their base is specifically? Yeah, it's in this clearing within a rocky hill that's maybe a mile or two away from here. Well, maybe if we stay away from that area, we may not run into any of them. Maybe. I remember a sign that said Tonor Cave was down the path that was opposite of their base, Wyatt said before he let out a sigh. Well, I guess we should go in and hope we don't run into any of their members. After that, the two of them entered Shade Forest and slowly made their way down the path through the woods. Now that there weren't any people around, Petunia was able to become a little more calm as there wasn't anyone staring at them. While walking down the path, Sunset was able to see some of the various Pokemon running through the trees and bushes that could be found in Shade Forest. Curious, she decided to scan some of them with their Pokedex and discovered what some of the Pokemon were called. There were Caterpies, Weedles which were large caterpillars but were brown and had small spikes on top of their head and tail, and small mammals that were either purple or light blue with large ears, whiskers, and horns on their heads that were called Nidoran. Different colors showed off if a Nidoran was male or female, with purple Nidoran being male and light blue being female. Eventually, they made it to the split in the road where the trail post was. So where did you say the cult of Darkrai's base was? Sunset asked. Just down that way, Wyatt said as he pointed down the right path. Following that path leads to the rocky hill where their base is located. Alright, then I suppose all we need to do is head left and down this trail, Sunset said as she read the trail post and pointed down the left path. Sounds about right. Cross our fingers that we don't run into any cultists, Wyatt said. The two of them headed down the left trail, and after a couple of minutes of walking, Sunset began to feel her backpack buzzing as a purple light began to shine through the zipper of the large compartment of her backpack. Neither Wyatt or Shay noticed this as they were walking in front of Sunset, but when Sunset felt the buzzing, it took her a few moments to realize what it was as she stopped in her tracks and her eyes went wide. She realized that since she still had her backpack and none of the cultists probably took anything out of it when she was taken into their base, then that meant... Hey Sunset, are you okay? You kinda just stopped walking, Wyatt asked, which caused Sunset to snap out of her train of thought. Oh, yeah, I just need to go to the bathroom real quick, Sunset said as she thought up of a lie on the spot. Do you mind if I just leave you all here while I go? Oh, sure, go ahead. Just make sure to be quick. Great, I'll be right back. Petunia, stay here with Wyatt and Shade for a second, Sunset said as she put Petunia back onto the ground before going into the foliage and trees while her starter sat down beside Wyatt as they waited for her. Eventually, after going a little bit into the woods and making sure that no one would be able to see her, Sunset sat down with her back against a tree as she took off her backpack and sat it down beside her. She then opened the main compartment and pulled out her journal where its pages were glowing with a purple light. Opening it, Sunset found that Twilight had been sending her message that gradually increased in worry as Sunset hadn't arrived through the portal. Dear Sunset, you didn't arrive through the portal earlier, so I was wondering if you accidentally stepped past the time you said you would come through the portal. Please write back as soon as you are awake or see this. Your friend, Twilight Sparkle. Dear Sunset, did something come up? It's been a couple of hours since you said you would arrive, so I was wondering if something came up. If it involves a strange shadow and you aren't able to come here to Equestria, I'd be happy to come through the portal and help out. Your friend, Twilight Sparkle. Dear Sunset, are you there? Did something bad happen? Do you need help? Your friend, Twilight Sparkle. Dear Sunset, answer me, please. Seeing how worried Twilight was about her to the point of not signing the last message, Sunset rummaged around in her bag before she pulled out an orange pen and began writing a message as fast as she could. Dear Twilight, I'm okay, but something happened on my way to Equestria and, well, I don't know if I'll be able to get to you for a while. Or Canela High for that matter. Your friend, Sunset Shimmer. After writing down her message, little seconds later, Twilight wrote back with her own message. Oh, thanks Celestia, you're okay. I've been worrying for the past few hours since you haven't been answering, and I was just about to go to Canela High myself to see if something bad had happened. Wait, what do you mean you won't be able to get to Equestria or Canela High for a while? Sunset chuckled a bit, as this was one of the rare few times that Twilight didn't address one of her messages as though it was a letter. It just went to show how worried the Princess of Friendship was and how relieved she was to hear that she was okay. She decided to also not write the next few messages to help Twilight stay calm. The thing is, when I was about to go through the portal, something happened to it. Its surface got dark to the point where it was pitch black, and then something, I don't know what, pulled me through. Traveling through the portal to wherever the thing took me felt wrong. Like everything didn't feel natural. I unfortunately passed out before I could see where I was taken to. I woke up not too long ago and I learned that I'm in another world, one that's similar to the human version of Equestria, but it's different in a lot of ways. You're in another world? I mean, I guess it makes sense that there are other worlds if an alternate version of Equestria exists, but back to the matter at hand. Do you have any idea how you got there? And also, what do you mean it's similar yet different to the alternate Equestria? Well, for one, humans exist here and I wasn't transformed into a unicorn when I was apparently taken here, so I'm still a human. The other thing is that some of the architecture I've seen so far is similar, so there's that. But that's kind of where the similarities end for the most part. So what's different then? Sunset then wrote down everything she had learned so far ever since she woke up. How the continents and the places of the world were different and how she was in what was known as the Tauran region. How this world's technology was a lot more advanced compared to that of the alternate version of Equestria, and how Pokemon coexisted with the people of this world. She also included things such as some of the various technologies she has witnessed, how Pokemon battles work, and also made sure to include that there were various cults in the Tauran region, and that she was helped to escape one even though she was passed out. That sounds amazing. Well, except for the fact that there are evil cults that torment the region, but other than that, everything sounds incredible. Yeah, but I had to tell some people that I'm not from this world. I didn't tell them about Equestria though. Currently, the Pokemon professor of this region is trying to contact some of her colleagues in the Alola region to see if they can help me get back to the alternate Equestria, as they apparently research interdimensional rifts. While she's doing that, I decided to become a Pokemon trainer and take on the gym challenge with 2 others. Currently, we're heading into a place called Telnor Cave, where we can find a rare stone for this augur guy. That sounds perfect. Don't worry, I'll try and see if I can try and help find anything that can help you get back. I'll also try and see if Celestia or Luna might know anything that could help us as well. Also, if you don't mind me asking, who are these other 2 people you're taking this gym challenge with? And who's this augur you mentioned? Their names are Wyatt and Damien. Wyatt is the boy who got me out of the cult of Darkrai's base while I was unconscious, though they apparently did something to him as he can't remember anything personal. He doesn't even remember if he has any family or if anyone knows him personally, so he decided to take on the gym challenge to travel the region and see if he can find anyone who knows him. Damien is a boy who wanted to become a trainer for a long time and also thinks of the augur as his hero. He reminds me of Pinkabye with how much enthusiasm he has. He's also really kind as well. As for the current augur, he's apparently the strongest trainer in Tauran and helps protect from the cults. The thing is, while a lot of people admire him, some people don't like him as much compared to the previous one. Apparently, the first one was able to disband many of the cults, while the current one apparently hasn't disbanded a single one. Also, he's apparently done a lot of things people don't like, but I don't want to judge him until I meet him for myself. Hey Sunset, are you almost done? Sunset jumped a little as she realized she may have been gone longer than she wanted to be as she heard Wyatt call out for her. Sorry, I need to go. I need to get back to the others so we can continue heading to Telnor Cave. I'll write back later, okay? Okay, and Sunset, thanks for letting me know you're okay. I'll do everything I can to help you and get back to either version of Equestria. You can count on it. Thanks, Twilight. Sunset closed her journal before putting it back into her backpack. While she was at it, she also decided to put her badge case inside the larger compartment, as well to help slightly free up room in her pockets. Once she zipped up her backpack and put it back on, she walked through the trees and grass until she was back with Wyatt, Shade, and Petunia. I guess when you gotta go, right? Wyatt joked. Yeah, sorry I took so long. Anyways, let's get back on track, shall we? Sunset said as she picked Petunia back up. Wyatt gave a simple nod as the 2 of them continued heading through Shade Forest until they began walking through some grass, and there was a potion lying on the ground which Wyatt went over to and picked up before they continued walking. Why did you pick up a potion lying on the ground? Could have been someone's trash that they just decided to toss, Sunset asked. Well, that's actually not the case most of the time. Sometimes trainers will accidentally lose or drop items that fall out of their pockets or bags, and they usually don't find them, causing them to be abandoned. It's considered common courtesy to pick up these dropped items and either throw them away if they do happen to be trash, or keep them and use them for later. Well, I guess that's one way to make sure litter is taken care of. Sunset said after a couple of minutes, she noticed a red and yellow spray bottle similar to a potion lying on the ground right by the trees. So I guess I should pick that up? Yep, and it looks like that's a super potion. Essentially, they function almost exactly the same as a potion, but as the name suggests, its healing capabilities are more effective compared to a potion. Well then, don't mind if I do, Sunset said as she set down Petunia and went over to pick it up, only for Petunia to begin calling out as she tried to warn Sunset that something wasn't right. What's wrong, Petunia? Sunset said as she picked up the super potion and turned to look at Petunia, who began to back away as she saw something behind Sunset. Turning around, Sunset was met with a ghastly sticking its tongue out at her as it tried to scare her. It worked, causing Sunset to backpedal away from it in fright as a ghastly laughed. Ah, what is that thing? That's a ghastly. It's a ghost and poison type that likes to scare people in Pokemon. I guess it was using that super potion as a trap so it can scare anyone who would try and take it, Wyatt said. Seriously? Why, you little... Sunset said as she tried to grab the ghastly, only for it to easily fall out of her reach, where it then proceeded to stick its tongue out more at her. This continued on for a bit, before it was covered in a faint pink aura as pink circles slammed into it from all around it and caused it to slam onto the ground. Surprised, Sunset looked around and saw Petunia's irises slowly stop glowing bright pink as she tried her best to look menacing, though she was failing as she still looked very nervous. Petunia, did you just... Sunset asked, however her attention was turned back to the ghastly as it slowly began to float back up and stared at the group with a glare. It looks like we might have made it mad, and it also looks like it's glaring at both you and Petunia, Wyatt said. Sunset looked back and forth between the ghastly and Petunia. The ghastly looked like it was about to attack at any moment, meaning that she needed to decide what she was going to do fast. That's when it hit her. Wyatt, it isn't illegal to battle wild Pokemon, is it? She asked. No, why do you... Oh, you mean you want to? Wyatt asked excitedly as he realized what Sunset was saying. Sunset nodded before she walked behind Petunia, who looked back at her while trying to keep an eye on the ghastly. Petunia, did you mind helping me battle this ghastly? Sunset asked. Petunia responded by giving a shaky nod, which prompted Sunset to pull out her Pokedex to see what moves Petunia knew. Alright, then let's do this! Petunia let out her best war cry, which was still a little quiet, as the battle began. Petunia, use baby doll eyes! Sunset called out, prompting Petunia to look at the ghastly as her eyes began to sparkle. The ghastly was unable to look away as a blue aura and particles appeared as one of its stats were lowered. What did baby doll eyes lower? Sunset asked. Baby doll eyes is a high priority move that reduces an opponent's attack. Oh yeah, high priority moves are moves that are able to hit first regardless of how fast a Pokemon using it is. To put it simply, if a slow Pokemon was to use a high priority move while a fast Pokemon used a normal move, the high priority move would be used first and either hit the target or be used first, White explained. Ghastly floated towards Petunia and got right in her face. Before she or Sunset could react, the Ghastly used its tongue and gave Petunia a giant lick that knocked her back a little bit, though it also seemed to do quite a bit. Did it just lick her? Sunset asked. Yeah, that move was literally called Lick. It's not a too powerful ghost type move, but because it is a ghost type move, it's super effective against Petunia as she's a psychic type, Wyatt said. Now that I think about it, how many types are there in total? Currently 18. There could be more, but that's all the types that have currently been discovered. Wow, that's a lot. Anyways, Petunia can't use Tackle as Ghastly is a ghost type, so instead, use Confusion. Petunia's irises began to glow pink again as a familiar pink aura surrounded Ghastly before more pink circles slammed into it and it was slammed back onto the ground. Floating back up, its eyes began to glow light blue as waves of blue energy began to flow towards Petunia. Petunia, dodge whatever that Ghastly's using, Sunset called out. Thankfully, Petunia was able to move out of the way before the wave hit her. What move even was that? That was Hypnosis. It's a psychic type move that inflicts a sleep status condition, Wyatt explained. Okay, what are status conditions? Status conditions are negative effects that can be applied to Pokemon, often through the use of status moves, but physical and special moves can also inflict them. Sleep is just one of them, and as the name implies, the target is put into a deep sleep that they can only wake up from on their own or if they're attacked. Then I guess it's a good thing that you avoided that. Now use Confusion again. Petunia used Confusion once more, which slammed the Ghastly back down. As it got up though, its eyes began to swirl around as small yellow birds began to circle around the top of it. What did we just do? Sunset asked. Confusion is a psychic type move that's super effective against poison types, and it has a chance to inflict the status condition of the same name. Pokemon who are confused can't focus all that well and may end up putting too much force into an attack, miss completely, and hurt themselves in the process, Wyatt explained. As he did, the Ghastly tried to use Lick again, only for it to miss and crash into the ground next to Petunia and hurt itself. Fine by me. Petunia, finish it with one last Confusion. Petunia did so, causing the Ghastly to be launched back towards the trees and into one, where it promptly passed out and fell to the ground as it was defeated. Petunia, we did it! Sunset said as she knelt down and held her arms open, where Petunia ran over to her and leaped into her arms as the two hugged over their first victory as a trainer and partner. You both were amazing for your first battle, Wyatt said as Shade gave in a green thumbs up. Yeah, I guess we were, Sunset said as she looked back down at Petunia before she looked over at the Ghastly. What the? Now where do you think you're going? Sunset asked as she saw the galaxy slowly float back up. Noticing it was being watched, it flew back into the trees where it disappeared out of sight. It'll be fine. Wild Pokemon tend to get back up pretty soon after a battle. It looks like that one got up pretty quickly. Anyways, you still got a super potion out of this ordeal, Wyatt said as he pointed out the super potion that Sunset still held in her hand. Yeah, I'll just put this away for now, Sunset said as she took off and opened the middle compartment of her backpack to put the super potion in, only to drop it as it shrunk. What the? Yeah, Pokeballs aren't the only thing that can shrink to save on storage space. Potions and other stuff can do that as well, so that they can fit into bags easier. Now I feel like this world's technology is actively trying to break my brain, Sunset said as she picked back up the super potion and put it into one of the many pouches in the compartment before zipping it back up. Speaking of, Wyatt said as he pulled out one of the potions he took from the Cult of Darkrai's base. You could use this to heal Petunia. She may have only taken a bit of damage, but it's best to be fully healed in case something happens. Wyatt then knelt down and sprayed the potion on Petunia, mostly on her face as she closed her eyes, as that's where she was hit by Lick. After he was done, Petunia was back to feeling 100%. Thanks for that, Sunset said as the two of them stood back up. No problem. Now let's keep going. Toner Cave shouldn't be too far ahead. The two of them continued down the path before they eventually reached an opening in the trees. Going through it, they found themselves in a small clearing with flowers here and there and patches of tall grass as well. Further into it was a more open space as there was a small river that had a small wooden bridge over it that led to the other side where the entrance to Toner Cave was. Making their way further into the clearing and across the bridge, they made it to the entrance and went through it into Toner Cave as they hoped to catch up with Damien and find the rare stone they were looking for, and maybe battle against any wild Pokemon that challenged them to fight to help Shade and Petunia get stronger.